you ever hated a book so much and just had so many things to say about it that you just had to just rant about it? Yeah, this is gonna be one of those. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today is going to be a rant review, not scripted, so it will be even less polished than my normal videos. But hey, no one's gonna watch this anyways, so who gives an F? But anyways, so today I am going to be talking about Robinson Crusoe. Now, for those who are unaware of this book, Robinson Crusoe was a book published in the late 1600s, early 1700s, and it is believed to be basically like the first, not like the first modern novel. So this was a really, really big deal when it came out. Robinson Crusoe was actually the best-selling book for a while. At the time, it was like the #1 book in the entire world. And behind it, the second most popular book at the time was Gilligan's Travels, which is believed to be, at least by most scholars, to be a parody of Robinson Crusoe. So that just shows you how like impactful this book was. Now, Robinson Crusoe is indeed a fiction novel. Nothing that happens in this book is true, though it is not written like that. It is written very much in the autobiographical style, and it is believed to actually inspire, the style at least inspires later autobiographies. So how did I come to read this book? So I had to read it for class, and hence why I know so much background information about this book. But yeah, so also, like, this book has been criticized by everyone. Like, everything I probably say in this video, someone has probably already criticized. Like, this book, because this book has been around for literally like almost 300 years now, like, this book has very much been well criticized and praised in every way imaginable. And I mean, in the edition of the book that I have, literally it comes with like a bunch of like essays with criticism from like the 1800s to like the 20th century. Like, this was republished, like this edition was published in like the late 90s, so up to then, like everyone and everything has already criticized this book. So nothing I say is new or interesting. Like, I mean, I didn't necessarily read all of the criticism in the back of this book because I was just not gonna do that, and I didn't have to. But yeah, so there's that. So why does this book drive me so freaking insane? Well, first of all, it's like extremely just the worst. Okay, but to be more specific, it's extremely racist. Like, right off the bat, like, people are like, it should be expected. Like, this was written in the early 1700s, right? You expect there to be some racism in a book written in the early 1700s. Like, that's not surprising. But oh my god, the levels this book goes to. It's so dehumanizing. Like, it's not just like normal racism that you would expect, or even like blatant terrible racism that you would expect from this like period and everything. It's so much worse because it is literally just dehumanizing. And for the like character, the non-white characters in this book that are dehumanized, like, almost everyone and everything is like derived and dehumanized in this book. That's one of my biggest problems with it. And one of the things that drives me absolutely insane, it's like, it's so like emotionless. Like, this is a work of fiction. And it feels like it doesn't feel like a work of fiction because it's just so dry. It's like it doesn't feel like fiction in the worst way. It's so bloody dry, and there's just like nothing in it. I mean, obviously there's stuff in it, but like there's also like nothing. Nothing happens emotionally in this book. A lot of things just happen, but nothing emotionally happens, if that makes sense. It's one of those kind of books. And like, apparently, like when this was first published, there were a bunch of people who thought like this was like nonfiction. Like, it's like, at the time, it's like deep realistic fiction where, again, like people thought this was legit real, but like reading it from like a modern audience, or just like a modern audience who has even the slightest sense of like actual history, it's so clear that it's fake, that it's fiction. But like, the fact that people thought that this was real is disturbing, because we'll get into that. There's some shit that happens, but um so first off, let's just kind of start at the beginning, kind of set this up. Let's start with the titular character himself, Robinson Crusoe. So, who is Robinson Crusoe? He is literally, like, think of the most heartless, ruthless capitalist who thinks that they're doing good in the world, or it's like neutral, and also like extremely religious and religious intolerant. Like, that person, that like entrepreneurial person, the like evangelical entrepreneurial, like heartless, soulless person, but also somehow extremely entitled and treats everyone like their literal property. That's Robinson Crusoe. He is, oh my gosh, he is literally the antithesis of everything wrong in a person. I'm not kidding when I say that. Like, so first of all, he starts out in this book middle class, like upper middle class. And so keep in mind, like at the time like this was written and everything, class structures were, this was like at a time when like class structures were like really starting to change. So, you know, he was in a pretty comfortable lot in life. His father, he was like some sort of like small business owner, like merchant sort of person and everything. And so like Robinson Crusoe like had money to like live. Like, he didn't come from like a poor background or like working class. Well, working class didn't really exist at this point, but like from like a poor background. Like, he wasn't like a poor peasant or like a serf or anything like that. He has quite a bit of money in the beginning for like investments and stuff, and we'll get into that. But so like this, like he has money, but he's not like super rich or anything like that. But he still like has money and like a semi decent lot in life. Like, yeah, like he's doing fine. And so his father basically is just like, yeah, just like stay at home and like don't this up. And Crusoe is just like, I want to go to the sea and like be like a sailor and everything. Which, like, at the time, like becoming like a sailor, like a sailor and like an entrepreneur type of person is basically the equivalent of like the people who are like, I want to start up like my own tech business. Like, that, it's kind of like that sort of thing and everything, where it was like this new like budding like kind of like industry and everything like that. So for the equivalent, so he's basically like that. And his father's just like, don't do this, like don't screw this up. Like, you want to live the middle of the road life. You don't want to be super rich and you don't want to be super poor. Like, you're good, just try to get like a middle of the road life and everything. And he's just like, no, I want more in life. And so he literally like leaves home like without like telling his parents. And by the way, like his parents like have like legit reasons for him not wanting to go to the sea, because apparently like his older brother literally died at sea in like the Navy, I think, in like the Imperial Navy or something like that, and he got killed. And so like his parents really don't want him going out and everything. And so like again, like legit reason for like why his parents don't want to leave. And he just like leaves his parents and everything, and he doesn't even like really like say goodbye and everything, and he just leaves his parents and without a word, and then he just goes on the ship. It's basically like this terrible omen happens, and where like his ship gets kind of like he gets like caught in a storm and everything, and literally, and he gets like super seasick, and literally the captain like tells him, like, he's just like, look buddy, you're clearly not meant to be at sea, just like go home. Like you're not meant for this life, go home. And he's like, oh, maybe I should, but nah. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go back to my comfortable middle class lifestyle. No. He must go on, and he must do more. It's his destiny. And so he just does this, and then he ends up getting like an apprenticeship, and a bunch of kind of stuff happens, and he ends up, and he like again he lives semi comfortably, like maybe not as comfortably as he did before, but like still pretty comfortably and everything. And like he has like a good like master, and master in this term is kind of like a boss. He's living a pretty chill life. He has money. Like he took a bunch of money, which by the way, like they now actually discuss this in the book and everything, and I guess he made some money, I guess, of his own, but it kind of seems like he stole some of his parents' money. Like I think he low-key stole his parents' money. It's not explicit in the book, but like where else did he get that money? I guess he worked before, but he was like 16 or something like that when he left. So like he couldn't have been working for that one. Like I know they started working much younger, but like he couldn't have been working. He couldn't have made that much money. He had like well, I mean conversions are weird, but like a couple $1,000 like of like money. I probably be equivalent to it, because he said like it could last him, actually probably even more, because he said like it could last him like a couple months. So quite a bit. You know, I'm trying to think like how much does it cost? I guess it depends the area and everything, but like still. So he probably stole some of his parents' money. Probably. Again, it's not explicit in the book, but he might have made all that money, but I don't think. Eventually, like, he gets captured by like Algerian pirates and everything. And again, context for people who don't really know. So at the time, there was a lot of like North African pirates and everything, like around the Mediterranean Sea. Like everyone thinks that all the piracy happened in like the Caribbean and everything, but actually most of it happened in like the African coast. So there's that, particularly like the Mediterranean, and then also the East African coast. The East African coast, in between like India and Africa, was where most of the piracy actually took place. He gets like captured by them. I think it was Algerian pirates, and so he gets captured by these pirates and everything, and he's made a slave. And he's not, like, how he describes it, he's not treated super terribly, like, really bad and everything. Like, this wasn't, like, chattel slavery sort of, like, that, like, ruthless chattel slavery sort of thing. It was, and everything. Again, he was just, like, a paid worker, to be honest. But, like, unpaid worker. To be honest and everything, but like naturally he wants to be free and all that, which like fair, I guess. But like, and then how he gets free. So he ends up. So his master like trusts him to a point and everything, which full on his master for literally trusting Crusoe. No one should ever trust Crusoe. Like this guy, we'll get into that, but like should never trust him. So he sends like the boat out and everything for like to like get like some fish or something like that. I don't even remember. And he's with like this little boy and everything, who I don't know how young he is. Crusoe at this point is like, I think like 18, 19 or something like that. I think he's like 19 at this point. And so like and this boy is younger than him. So I'm guessing this kid is like preteen or like early teens or something like that. Um this kid whose name is Zuri, I think is his name. Um yeah. And this like other guy who's like I don't know if he's like an overseer or something. I don't think he was like a free man. I think he was like an overseer of them or something like that. Or whatever. And then like Crusoe just like and then so Cruz is on like this boat and everything, and he just takes this like overseer dude. He literally grabs him by like the balls. Like they literally explain it. He literally grabs him by the balls and just throws him overboard and everything, and starts like sailing the ship and everything. And he literally tells the kid like, who he knows can't swim. He's like, "Hey kid, if you like try to do anything or say anything or try to help this man, like I'm gonna throw you overboard too." And like, yeah, and so and like this like guy who's like and he's just like, oh, it's fine, I know he can swim. It's like, okay buddy, but like he's like begging him to like come on and everything. Like he's like, no, please take me with you, I promise to be like your servant forever. And he's just like, I'm not buying it, I don't trust you. Like we'll get into like Crusoe's trust issues. This is no reason for trust issues, but like he's just like, no, I don't trust you. And he's just like, nope. And he's just like, swim to shore or I'm literally going to shoot you. I should probably mention this, but like the entire book is written in Crusoe's perspective. And like this guy, like, I mean, so it's written like from his perspective. Like it's written in first person, again, from Crusoe's perspective. Again, it's a fictional book, but it's first person. So we literally get his thoughts, and he was literally gonna shoot him. Like he wasn't just like low key threatened. He was literally gonna shoot him. Same with the kid. He was literally gonna throw him overboard. Like he was actually gonna kill this kid if he didn't comply to him. And so the kid was just like, yeah, like I'm gonna do like everything you say and everything. And in my head, I'm just like, this kid is terrified for their life. But Crusoe doesn't write it like that. He's just like, man, this is just like such a loyal kid and everything. And like he's just like really great, and like I can train him really well. And he immediately, so he literally, okay. So this guy literally just escaped slavery, right? Like he's been like living like as a slave for like I think it was like a couple of years, and literally the first thing he does as a free person is enslave this kid. And I'm like, what the freak? Like, yeah. And by the way, yeah, this kid is like I don't know. Like he was like a slave before, or like I don't know if he was a slave. Yeah, I think he was like a slave or something like that. Um, or whatever. And like and everything, and he's like again like he's like North African, Middle Eastern vagueness, you know, like because they aren't specific. Because this is a big written in here. It's not specific, but he's probably Algerian, I'm guessing. But I don't know. Or maybe he's not Algerian. I don't know. But like, so he's like this like Middle Eastern, North African kid. I don't really know, but they're like sailing and everything. And Crusoe is just like, he's kind of treating this kid like shit. Like he thinks like this kid is like going to like betray, like, and he's just like, and he doesn't think this kid is gonna betray him until like one point. But like at one point he's like, I think he might betray me, but then he doesn't, and it's just like him being paranoid. So like at one point he goes to the African coast, right? And he just like sees like this wild beast or whatever, and I don't know what it is. I think it's like a leopard. It's like how they describe it. It sounds like a leopard, but like I don't really know. And like so he goes to the African coast, shoots like this like wild beast and everything. And like keep in mind, this guy is like, and so he's like starving because he literally goes to the African coast to get like supplies and everything because he's like starving. There's like not a lot of food or anything on that. And he kills like this wild beast and everything. And he's just like, oh darn it, the meat isn't any good. And I'm just like, psh, the meat isn't any good. My freaking butt. You would take what you can get. And he's like, well, the skin might be useful for me eventually. And so he takes the skin and like he just like leaves the rest of the animal just freaking lying there and everything. Like you're literally starving, dude. And he just like refuses to eat it. And even like the kid, like Jerry, is just like, hey, are we gonna eat this? And he's just like, no, we're not gonna eat this. Are you crazy? No. that would be insane. It's like, what the frick? Like, you're literally starving, dude. What do you literally have to lose? He does this several times throughout the book. So he has a habit of just killing animals, taking like some part of their body and just like leaving the rest aside. Even if he's like starving, like even if like he like needs to eat, he just wastes animal. And like he knows he can eat it because, and like he knows he can like eat like these like animals and everything because like the natives eat these animals. Because like that was like one of the things he was just like, man, these like barbaric, yeah, getting more into the racism and everything. So first of all, the whole thing with, you know, this guy being the Middle Eastern-ish, North African-ish kid, being extremely subservient to him just immediately and all that. Yeah, that's, but yeah, then there's literally like the the savage trip. He literally just calls them savages. Like I don't know what I'm dancing around with this. He literally calls like these people like savages, and again, it's like East, like I guess maybe West Coastern Africans, but like, and he's just like, man, these like people are kind of savage. But like he even like admits like they're like super kind and everything, but he still calls them savages. Like this is the weird thing with Crusoe. Like he literally, so he's like talking about like these like Native African people and everything, and he talks about like how like kind they are and like how like honest they kind of seem and everything, and like how they don't like really seem to mean him any harm or anything like that. And at the same time, he just like calls them like savages and all that, and it's it's not even the noble. Is it the noble savage trope? No, it's not the noble savage trope, because the noble savage trope, like, at least like acknowledges like the like worth of that. Like it's still like, because the whole noble savage trope thing is like the idea of like they're like noble but they're still like backwards sort of thing. But it's not even that, because he doesn't necessarily even see that. He just thinks they're bloody savages, and he's just like, and he's like not comfortable like around their presence, and he really doesn't see them as human. Like he does not see most of these people as humans. And that's like a whole nother thing, and this whole leads to the whole thing. So eventually shenanigans happen and everything, and so he ends up sort of getting shipwrecked, and he ends up getting saved by this, I think it was Portuguese, yes, Portuguese captain. So by this Portuguese captain and everything, and so this Portuguese captain is like super nice to him, and he's just like, oh, like this guy is like great and like he's amazing. But like the reason why he thinks he's so great and amazing is not because of like his actual character, well, kind of his actual character, but like mostly because he's just like treats him so well and like so fairly and everything. Like it's like a purely almost like monetary transaction. Like his, like the one like glowing thing about him was that like he like allowed him to like keep his like wealth, basically, because he basically offered like everything on the ship, and he was just like, no, keep your wealth and everything. Like I'm just doing this out of the goodness of my heart. First of all, Crusoe literally never does anything like that. Like ever. Like everything is transactional to him. So yeah, like this Portuguese captain, I would say is the best character in the book, but he's not, because he is a literal slave owner. Like just flat, like he literally buys the kid like Zuri and everything. So keep in mind, so at this point Crusoe is just like, man, this kid Zuri and everything, we were like really close. I'm really feeling attachment, almost like a father and son sort of thing. And then literally so like this Portuguese captain is just like, hey, how much do you want for the kid? And he's like, I don't really know how I feel about selling him. Like he helped me escape from my freedom and everything. And he was just like, oh, well, I'll give you a bunch of money, and like I'll maybe set him free in like 7 or 10 years maybe, if like he converts to Christianity. And then Crusoe was just like, well, I guess I'll just do it. I think that's the best thing for him. He literally sold this kid into slavery. Like literally just sold this kid into slavery. After this kid, again, helps him escape slavery himself, and he sells him to this guy, to this Portuguese captain and everything, who at the time, he really didn't know that much about, he had only known him for like maybe a couple of weeks when he sold him. So like he didn't really know this guy, and he just sells him. Like, he just sells this human being who, like, again, like, he develops an attachment to him. Like, this is why I think Crusoe, like, Crusoe is a literal psychopath. How can anyone just, like, see, like, this person who you think of as, like, almost like a son or something, and, like, just, like, sell them, like, and just literally sell them. And, like, the craziest thing about this, and you would think, oh, well, like, maybe he has, like, some remorse. No, I take that back. He does have remorse. So we'll get into that. Because, so first of all, so he ends up going to Brazil and settling in Brazil, and he ends up creating a plantation. And he talks about, like, how hard he worked. He worked so freaking hard in this plantation. And then he bought some slaves, also and then got, like, servants from England. Literal indentured servants. Basically, like, temporary slaves. Again, like, indentured servitude once again. But, like, from, like, England and everything. Which, by the way, they didn't actually mention this. I didn't really mention this, but he had indentured servants in England for some reason. I don't know when he got that, but somehow he did. And yeah, so he had, like, indentured servants in England. So he took one of his indentured servants from England, and also, like, bought a couple of slaves, and, like, just bought slaves. Yeah, so he became a slave owner right away and everything. And he talked about, like, how he was, like, very much involved in everything with, like, this plantation and everything and the business and everything. And in my head, I'm just like, God, you were a slave overseer and you probably treated them like shit. He doesn't necessarily talk about it, and I'm pretty sure he thought he was very kind of, I don't believe it for a bloody second. This guy's a freaking psychopath. Anyways, but so yeah, and so he just buys slaves, and he's very casual about it, and he's just like, yeah, like, he literally answers it. But, like, before that and everything, before he got his slaves, which, Jesus Christ, he does actually regret selling Ziri at that moment when he's working very, very hard, well, I guess, by himself in the plantation, because he was like, dang, I wish I had him for some free labor. Like, this guy literally only regrets selling this kid who he claimed he thought of as his son because he couldn't use his labor anymore. This fucking psychopath. Like, just, like, the worst. The worst. Just the worst. But does he get worse? Hell yeah, he gets worse. Because you know how in some books, characters get, like, better as they progress? Crusoe just gets worse and worse and worse. You think he can't get worse, but he does. He does. Because, so he ends up building up his plantation. His plantation becomes pretty successful. He should be good, right? But he has this drive for more. Fucking God, this bullshit. But, like, he has this drive for more. And so, like, a bunch of people were just like, hey, so we can't legally, like, get these slaves and everything, but, like, we want more slaves. So can you just, like, go to, like, I don't remember. I don't remember if it was one of the islands, like, in the Caribbean, or it was the African coast. I don't remember. Or if he went to the African coast, then to the Caribbean, then Brazil, which was ran by Portugal at the time. But because apparently at this time, like, at least the Portuguese slave trade wasn't legal or something, or they weren't able to, like, take slaves from or whatever. So they had to, so Crusoe literally, like, and he did this because literally he was just like, we'll give you your fair share of slaves. And he was like, well, I'm gonna do this. So anyway, so this guy, yeah, he literally enters the slave trade, and he literally takes a bunch of, and so he becomes a slave trader. So Crusoe becomes a slave trader. Just flat out becomes a slave trader, which, being a slave owner is terrible and awful in one thing, but being a slave trader and, like, inflicting that onto people and, like, no, it's worse. It's worse, in my opinion. But that's just me. Either way, both are bad. Slave master and slave trader. But, like, oh, God, it's terrible. And so he just does this. And again, he literally just does this, one, to get more slaves, and two, to make money. Like, that's it. That's it. There's no like coercion. Nope. And this is illegal. Like, this isn't even legal. Like, what is this guy even thinking? He is literally going through illegal activity, again, just to make money, and he's like doing things illegally. Like, this isn't even like the like it isn't even like the capitalism, like, oh, I played by the rules and I worked really hard and everything and I got where I am. He was literally doing something illegal for that. But I guess in his mind it wasn't immoral for some reason. This is why, like, when people like talk about like the like, oh, it's like the time thing and everything and it was legal so it was fine. It was like, these people weren't always doing things that were legal. Like, some of these things were illegal and they were just like skirting the law around this. And like this was not necessarily like normal behavior. And like, that's just something I want to make clear. It's like, oh, well, at the times and everything, this was not normal behavior. Like even other characters in this book don't do the things that Crusoe does and everything, and like the freaking psychopathism of them. And again, in like real life, there were people like fighting against like these forces and everything. This was not normal, okay? There was people and it was institutionally allowed, but it was not normal, okay? And these people legit thought it was moral. Whatever. Anyways, but he ends up getting stranded on an island because there was shipwreck and everything before he could return any slaves. I think he got the slaves, but I don't think he was able to return them, which in my head I was just like, haha, karma. And I was just like, this is the book low-key bringing karma onto him for entering into the slave trade. And you would think that, but no. Why? Because of how this narrative kind of, he's stranded on this island for like 20-30 years, mostly by himself. Does he reflect on the fact that he was a slave owner, or that he entered in the slave trade, or that he literally served a poor kid who literally helped him receive his freedom once? No, not once does he reflect on it. The only thing he reflects on, I'm not fucking joking when I say this, the only thing he reflects on was like, maybe I'm not religious enough and I'm not worshiping God enough, and I'm just sitting here like, yes, this is your problem, Crusoe, nothing else, just this. But even that, like, you can argue like, okay, so like, so what, like, so he's reflecting on like his like relationship to God or anything, and like, I'm not like an atheist or anything, like, I don't, that's not the problem. It's like, or an anti-theist or whatever, but like, he's just like reflecting on this, but the way he goes about it too, he's just like when something kind of bad happens to him, he's like, oh man, I haven't worshipped God well enough or anything, or like, I haven't done good, and then he like goes back into like his regular habits. So like, he doesn't even really keep up, like, he doesn't actually learn anything. Like, that's the thing, he doesn't actually become more religious by the end of this book. He talks about religion more, and I guess he learns about religion more. We'll get to that. But like, he doesn't actually learn anything. That's like the biggest takeaway. He doesn't learn anything. This guy doesn't learn a bloody thing. There is no self-reflection. There is nothing. And this is why I'm saying, like, this book is not like low-key like making fun of him. And there is theories, there are interpretations of this book that like Defoe, who wrote the book, means we're not like supposed to like sympathize with Crusoe, or that we're not supposed to like see him or like take it as like aspirational. But I don't believe that for 1 second. And if so, if that was Defoe's intention, which I don't believe, knowing what I know about Defoe, we'll talk about that, but like, I don't believe that at all. But mostly because, and even if he did terribly because of how the story ends. So he does eventually get off the island, and he ends up getting all the rewards. Like, oh my god, this guy. So when he does eventually leave the island, and there's one really important thing, several really important things that happen that I want to rant about on this island. But when he does eventually leave the island, he is basically given like all the reward. Like, so he ends up going back to England and everything. He's still in fairly good health. Like, there's no like permanent scars or anything. Again, he literally learns jack shit. The biggest thing is like he ends up receiving a bunch. He ends up becoming extremely wealthy. You might be like, how the freak did this guy who's literally stranded on an island, not necessarily really doing anything in terms of like the market economy or whatever, make a lot of money? So remember his plantation? So his plantation was making him a bunch of money, and he literally didn't do anything. This is like, oh my fucking god. This is like actual capitalism right here. Like, low key. Like, he literally didn't do anything. But like his plantation made him a ton of money. He literally didn't do a thing for like 30, I think he was stranded on the island for like 30 years or something like that. And he gets a shit ton of money. Again, basically off of pure slave labor. He wasn't even directing the slave labor and everything. He was just making profit. And they thought he was dead and everything, so he didn't actually make it. But he ends up getting like the money like pretty quickly. Like he didn't have to go through like a major like fight or anything to get that. He ends up, so by the time he does return, his parents are already dead. In fact, most of his family's dead. He only has like 2 sisters that he's not really close with in their life. He has like no connection with his family whatsoever. And this is not self-reflected on at all. But yeah, but he has like no like connection to his family at all. He ends up owning like his parents' estate, because his parents do have a small estate. As I said, they were like a upper middle class kind of family. So he ends up owning his family's estate. He still has like his plantation. He's getting a ton of money because he's like, I think he's like the last brother, or I guess maybe I think he has like one other brother or something, I don't remember. But like he still ends up getting the estate for some reason. And like, so he has like 2 estates, ton of money. He's like super rich now and everything. And he's still not, like at the end, he's still not satisfied. Like he's like, man, I still want more and everything. And he literally goes back to the island that he was like stranded on and everything, and basically builds a colony there, and becomes like literally like the ruler. I guess it's like he's like governor and everything. I guess it's technically ruled in, but he's like basically the dictator of an island now. He just owns an island now, just because he put claim to it and everything. And his reason for why specifically he should have the island is ridiculous. But to get into that, we have to talk about what happened on the island. So, the island. So, a lot of nothing happens on the island, but some important things do. So, first of all, was he the only person on the island? Yes and no, and yeah, it's coming to this. There were some natives, and granted, like these native, like there were native peoples. Granted, these like native peoples that, by the way, he only refers to them as savages throughout the entire book. Well, savages and cannibals. Yeah, no, they are actually cannibals. So that's step 1. So yes, and remember, this is fiction. And yes, Defoe wrote a bunch of native peoples who are constantly described as savages, being naked. You can barely tell men and women apart because God forbid. And yes, as cannibals. I was giving Defoe and Crusoe, mostly Defoe because he actually wrote this book, too much credit, because I was just like, oh, this is just, Robinson Crusoe thinking that they were cannibals because he's ignorant and stupid and doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, so bloody get through this book, and again, this is all fiction, but in my head, I always had to like make up like things for like the characters, like with the whole like Zuri situation. Like in my head, it's like this kid is just terrified for his life and everything. He doesn't actually want to be like this weird subservient creature and everything. And so like in my head, I just thought like, oh, like these people aren't actually cannibals. This is just Crusoe thinking that they're cannibals and everything, and they're actually not, and he'll actually learn something because I thought he might learn something, but no, they are literal cannibals. People thought this was real. And it's not just like a small group. It's like the entire like area is like full of like tribes of people who are cannibals and competing cannibalist tribes. And just dear God, I can't, like, I don't know what made me sicker in this book, the actual description of cannibalism, or all the goddamn context behind all this. People thought this was real. People thought this was real. God. So, disclaimer. The native peoples were not cannibals. And at least not in the way it is described. It is possible, belief, maybe, but we don't really know because cultural genocide and yeah, that in some tribes in like this area, which is like the like South America, Caribbean area, that as like a ceremonial kind of like ritual thing, the leader would take a bit of like the like dead like leaders, like after like they conquered or whatever place, would take a bit of like the leaders like flesh and eat it in like a purely like ceremonial thing, and just like a little bit, like it, like almost kind of like, I guess like the best way to describe it is almost like it, when I mean like a little bit, like probably like a tiny bit, like a bite size or something like that. Like it wasn't like they didn't literally feast on like the carcasses of people. Like that didn't happen and everything. And even that whole cannibalism description might not be completely accurate because Europeans like to be outlandish and make up shit. And we don't really have any records from the other side because genocide. So yeah, cannibalism didn't happen, and he was just in this book, and they were legit cannibals, and it still gets worse, but it just gets worse. And so yes, the idea of like the savage cannibalist natives from the America, that's bad enough, but it gets worse. It gets so much worse. When a bunch of these like people like come in and everything, and they have like human, they're like alive still, I guess, because they kill them, they like burn them alive and then eat them because of course, but and everything, like these people or whatever. So there's this one guy and everything who's like really young. He's like 18 or 19 years old. So I guess not like really, really young, but still like, or like maybe like in his early, so he's like in his late teens, early 20s. Keep in mind this. We're gonna talk. And so he ends up basically running for his life because he's about to get eaten. And so he kind of ends up like running for his life. And then like the people who were like bringing him to like feast on him or whatever. Ugh. You know, go and they chase after him. And then Crusoe. So Crusoe before this was like daydreaming of this scenario where basically one of these like captured people escape and then he rescues them and then eventually makes him his slave. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So he runs away. Crusoe ends up like killing, like just flat out killing these guys. No remorse at all. I mean, I guess they are cannibals, but like cannibals trying to kill this one dude, but still. And then this guy who Crusoe names Friday. Why does he name him Friday? Because that's the day he saved him. He doesn't bother asking what his name is. He doesn't ask his consent for naming him Friday. He just does it. But he rescues him. Which I mean, I guess he does. I mean, he was gonna literally get eaten. So literally his wildest fantasy comes to true, and Friday becomes so grateful to him. Like he starts like groveling at his feet. And yeah. And Crusoe kind of remarks like because like he's like never seen like a gun before or something like that, and he was like probably just marveling at the gun, which that's what I kept thinking. But then the narrative constantly basically says that no, he basically worships Crusoe as like a god or like a better, well, not a, no, a god, and like a better man. So yeah, yep, disgusting trope number 2, the whole amazing human, no. So yeah, that happens. And so like when you're reading this and everything, you think, oh, so Friday's like one of the good native people and everything who's not. But no, it makes it pretty clear that Friday is a cannibal too. And like Crusoe is like very horrified of this. And he's just like, no, we don't eat people, you weird savage. And he literally just continues to call him a savage. So Friday has literally like pledged his like loyalty to him in uncertain terms, but they still have like translation issues because they don't speak the same language. And obviously Crusoe wouldn't be bothered in learning another language. Of course not, he's an Englishman. Englishmen don't learn other languages. So he like basically teaches Friday English forcibly. Again, doesn't even try to, because why the freak would he? Because Friday's his literal slave. He doesn't treat him like the worst and everything, but literally this guy, like, keep in mind, he was literally alone. He hasn't literally spoken to anyone at this point in like 20 years. And the first thing he thinks when he sees another human being is, I'm gonna make him my slave. This is what I'm talking about. He is a psychopath. Not only the humiliation, and it makes it very clear that no, he's still a savage. No, we get the lovely, God help me, scenes of him civilizing Friday, and it's okay because Friday really likes it. He likes wearing clothes that are uncomfortable and are scratchy. He likes doing that. He really does. He likes learning English. He loves working super hard for Crusoe with absolutely no sort of compensation. In fact, he wants to do even more work than Crusoe asks him to do. Of course, because of course he just really likes it. And most importantly, it's really, really interesting in the Bible and in Jesus. Of course. This is a male power fantasy. I swear to God, this is a way male power fantasy. That's what this book is. But yeah, so literally. So, but you know, Friday is still a cannibal, of course. But don't worry. Crusoe teaches him how to not be a cannibal anymore. And do you know how he teaches Friday not to be a cannibal? He feeds him goat. And Friday was like, man, this goat tastes so good. I'm never eating another human again. If only I had tasted goat before this day. Because only a white guy would figure out how eating goat on this island. And of course, none of the natives ever just thought of that. Never. Because they were just so concerned about eating humans. Because they're cannibals. And they're stupid. Obviously. I'm being very sarcastic. I literally read that and I was like, I'm gonna throw this book across. It gets worse. So Crusoe literally starts questioning like Friday's loyalty again. Friday has literally done nothing. Absolutely nothing to suggest that he would like betray him or leave him or anything like that. And Crusoe starts like questioning his loyalty. No reason. He's just this paranoid little a-hole. Baby boy. He's just like, Friday, like, do you want to like go back to like your home people and everything? And then Friday was just like, yep. He was like, yeah, I do. He's like, yeah, I would like to be among my own people again. That would be. And Crusoe's just like, well, why don't you just leave me already, okay? And then Friday was just like, no, you can't. No, I don't ever want to leave you. No, you don't understand. I want you to come back with me. He ends everything, and he's like, I don't want to go back to those ways because these are clearly superior ways in every way possible. Fucking hell. No, I want you to come with me because I want you to teach my people your ways. And yeah, no, that's literal colonialist bullshit shit. Literal white man burden shit. Yeah, and then Friday ends up going with him. So by the way, when he leaves the island, yeah, Friday's with him and he's like basically like basically certain stuff. He never does actually go back to his people. Oh, but don't worry. No, because don't worry, because Crusoe still at the end ends up civilizing those people. Don't worry about that, of course not. Because when he eventually becomes the governor of the island and everything, he basically, how do I explain this? Actually, it's really not that complicated. He enslaves the native population. Flat out culturally understood. I don't even know how to explain. Assimilation. Not even really I don't even know what you would call it. Disgusting. It's just gross. So now let's talk about why he believes he should be the ruler of this island. Should be noted, when he escapes, so basically how he escapes is that this English vessel eventually gets this English captain gets kicked out of the boat and brought to the island because they believe it's a stranded island, for them to hopefully die. And of course, Crusoe is there with Friday, and then at this point, 2 other people, but they're not really important. And so he basically so there's this whole thing where they get the ship and everything. And that's how he kind of ends up escaping, because they end up taking back the ship and everything by a lot of weird stuff. And Crusoe, through this entire thing, is just a literal crazy ass dictator. No one, again, the whole submission thing to everyone who comes across him and everything, but it goes even further, because the captain actually, the captain who gets kicked off the ship is actually just you can't tell me what to do. And then Crusoe's just yes, I can. And then he's just okay. And he does. But again, and yeah, Crusoe does a lot of really brutal things with the people on this, but he has no actual he's not the captain is literally please don't kill all these people, and Crusoe's maybe we should kill all these people, and the captain's please no, don't do that. But Crusoe's just determined. He's just and eventually he's kind of proven right at the end. He was I told you we should have killed all those people. the captain's like, I guess you were right, we should have killed them, whatever. But he ends up, and he also like tricks them and whatever and threatens their lives. He does a lot of weird stuff, but he ends up leaving, like, stranding, I think it was like 4 of these people on this island and everything. I think it was like 4, like, the top conspirators. I mean, he killed a bunch, but I think, yeah, like, or one of the top conspirators or something like that. And, like, on this island. So keep in mind, when he gets back to the island, it was like I don't know, like 5 years later, 10 years later. The timelines are really weird in this book. It was like 5 or 10 years later. So these guys had, like, kind of like made a living for themselves on this island and everything. And eventually, like, the Spanish come and, like, take over parts of this island. So there were literally Spanish people on this island. And he comes back to the island, and he literally goes in. He's just like, actually, I deserve this entire island and everything, but I'll allow you Spanish people to basically work. Basically, he becomes a landlord. Like, he just becomes like a landlord, and he basically forces them. And he's just like, yes, you can work on this part of the land, but you still have to give me part of your profits from it, because landlord feudalism stuff, basically. And but like, his reason for, like, wanting to is because he's the first one to effectively utilize the land. Honestly, gets into, like, my biggest problem with this book, which is literally just like the weird fucking ideology in this book. Well, not weird ideology. It's actually very not surprising, honestly. It's extremely... This is the most... And I'm not kidding when I say this. Look, I live in the bloody United States in America, right? Like, I've grown up with capitalist, imperialist rhetoric my entire life. I have read tons of old books that have capitalist, colonialist, racist messaging and theme in this. I am not kidding when I say this is the epitome of capitalist, colonialist, imperialist, like, Puritan ideology I have ever read. This book, and this is what I mean by, I don't think this book was meant to be taken, like, ironically, because, so first of all, from what I know about Defoe, he was a definitely, like, true believer in, like, he was like a very religious kind of, like, I think he was Puritan, if I remember correctly. He was definitely Protestant, but very, like, religious, like, Protestant, and he was very much a believer in capitalism. Again, he was living in a time of really transition between, like, feudalism and capitalism, and he was a full embracer of capitalist, imperialist ideology. So he was at his time, and probably so he was at his time, and probably why this book was so popular, because it does really emphasize the time that, not even so much the time it was in, but it was very much a radical book. This was very radical for its time, and it's great, and it's radical now to a certain extent. I mean, we live in a capitalist, very much capitalist, imperialist world still, but this book was like, is also really interesting, though, in the sense of, like, this is the ideology to a T. Like, this is just sheer, like, capitalism, like, capitalist imperialism incarnate. Like, that is what this is. Like, this book, even in, like, Crusoe's, like, mannerisms, and it also is very, like, evangelical, like, Protestantism. sort of thing. There's a lot of things where it's just like, oh, like this is fine. Like basically everything that Crusoe does, he justifies because he kind of like believes like, oh, it's like all God's plan, basically, and like sort of thing like, well, God wanted this for me or else he wouldn't have let me be so successful. And again, that's like the whole thing of like, this was not meant to be taken ironically. This was meant to be read seriously and everything. And yeah, I don't like it. And it drives me insane. And it's disgusting. Like, this book actually disgusts me. And a lot of kind of books like this, you know, you build a stomach for this. Like, once you read enough like older literature and everything, you start building a stomach for like racist BS and, you know, patriarchal BS and toxic shit and brutality even to an extent. But this was like a whole new level because unlike almost every other book I've ever read, there is like no emotion. This is just it doesn't even feel human to me. Like this book, like it's like not even, it doesn't even feel humane. Like it feels almost like detached from all that. And like this is a fiction story. Like this wasn't like a real account. And like this is fiction. And like that almost makes it worse because if it's like an account of something, of like someone's life, it would be different because like that actually mostly sort of happened. But this was fiction. It did not have to be read this way. Every single thing that was written in this book was intentional. And not that like autobiographies and everything weren't, but like when you have that, you have like a basic and everything, like plot structure. Everything in this was made up. Everything in this, you know, is fictional. This is a fiction book. And that's, it drives me crazy. And it's like horrifying to read. And like the fact that it was so popular, I think is what disturbs me the most about this. Like hundreds of people read this uncritically. And for the record, I'm not like saying like this book should be like banned or anything, or that no one should ever read it. If you really want to read it, I obviously don't recommend it, but like I don't care. You know, as long as like you read it critically and you don't read it straight. Like in my edition of this book, there's like literally like 200 pages like worth of like critique and like essays and stuff. So, you know, it's not bad or anything, and there's not like there's literally no value in this book because, you know, it is very emblematic not only of a time but of an ideology that is to some extent still present, and that's really disturbing. So yeah, this is a really long video. I've literally been talking for like an hour. I'm pretty sure like my voice has gotten like hoarser throughout this. So that's fun. So if you like this video,